very warm welcome to this last session, and on the request of Professor Navalwar, we shall, instead of a tutorial session, have a lecture session on an introduction to multi-rate signal processing. Though, may I know how many of you are already quite familiar with multi-rate signal processing? Can you raise your hands, please? Okay. How many of you understand the connection between the HAR multi-resolution analysis and multi-rate filter banks? You see, the most common way of understanding data or understanding scenes or understanding information, at least the human mind, is not very often by taking pieces of information one at a time, stitching them together and then presenting it. Rather, it is by looking at the information broadly first, getting a broad feel of what we are talking about, and then narrowing down to finer details. See, and this is what we can also look upon as an alternative paradigm when you talk about representation of functions. So, for example, if I wish to represent a function, let's say it's a function of time. Now, one way to represent the one way to express this function or to understand this function is to treat each point in time as an independent degree of freedom and to associate a value with that point. But for example, if I am looking at a scene outside, if I am looking at a waveform, that's not what I normally do, isn't it? When we look at a waveform, we try and interpret it. What do? We normally first give a quick look at the waveform and get a broad feel of what the waveform is all about. So when you look at this waveform, the immediate reaction to this waveform is it's a smooth waveform. It has two curves or two humps, something like that. So we look at certain coarse features, and then we also start looking at finer features. So we say, well, in this region there is a rise, in this region there is some kind of a hump or a certain point of extremum. Here again there's a point of extremum, here there's a drop, then you start going into finer details, isn't it? So this idea of coarse to fine representation is often typical to understanding data and information, coarse to fine. So what would be the coarsest way of representing a function? To represent it by its average. So let us take a function and let's focus on the function on a certain interval of time. Let's say this interval of time. Of course, the function can be described for the entire real axis, but we are focusing on a particular part of the function. So the coarsest way to represent this function on this interval, let's call that interval capital T, is by using the average of the function. How will the average of the function look? Something like this, isn't it? How do you find the average? The average is found as the integral of ft dt over that interval of t and divided by t. Now, how do you refine this representation? By looking at the function over the two half intervals, isn't it? So suppose you divide this interval into two half intervals of size t by 2. Now you can describe the average of the function in each of the half intervals. So I'll show that by a dot dash line. So this is the average of the first half interval, and average over the second half interval. And let us use a notation to describe these. So, let us call this function itself will be called f of t. We will call this f capital T to denote the average over the whole interval of t. We will call this f t by 2, 2, second half interval of t by 2, and we will call this f t by 2, 1, first half interval of t by 2. Now, what we want to write a relation between these. We want to relate these three quantities f t by 2, 1 and f t by 2, 2. How would we do that? Very simple. F t is of course described by 1 by t integral, you can say f lambda d lambda integrated over that interval of t. F t by 2, 1 can be written as 1 by t by 2. Remember, you are now averaging over t by 2. Integral over that first interval of t by 2, f lambda d lambda. Is that right? And of course, f t by 2, 2 is 1 by t by 2 integral t by 2, 2, f lambda d lambda. So, you see, if you look at it, what is the relation between these integrals? Let's identify these integrals. Let's mark those integrals out. So that you have this integral and this integral and this integral. So, integral 1, integral 2, integral 3. What is the relation between the integrals 1, 2 and 3? It's very simple. The integral 1 is equal to the integral 2 plus the integral 3. It's very simple. So, therefore, now the only thing you need to do is to take care of the multiplying factors. So, you can easily write down a very simple relationship. You can see the multiplying factor is 1 by t here and it is 2 by t here, or 1 by t by 2 here. And therefore, all that you need to do is to divide the sum by 2, isn't it? So, therefore, what is the relationship that you have? Very simple indeed. F t is equal to half of f t by 2, 1 plus f t by 2, 2. Is that right? Now, the beauty of this whole discussion is that the interval t is arbitrary. So, what you do to go from an interval of t to t by 2 can also be done to go from an interval of t by 2 to t by 4, t by 4 to t by 8, t by 8 to t by 16 and so on. And you can keep doing this for as small an interval as you desire. And this is an alternate way of describing the function. So, instead of describing the function by assigning it a value at every point in time, you describe the function by first looking at it coarsely, broadly, and then refining it every time with a resolution improvement by 2. That is what we are doing here. So, in fact, you can see, let me put back that picture. If you look at this, now, in the first instance, this representation, the solid red line is very coarse. It's a very crude way of representing that function. These two dot dash lines are a little better. And now, if you can visualize, if I further take 1/4 of the interval and make a piecewise constant approximation, it's called a piecewise constant approximation. If I make a piecewise constant approximation on 1/4 the interval, it will look more like the function, and even more and even more and even more, isn't it? So, therefore, this is an alternate way to approach as closely to the function as you desire. In fact, now at this stage in the course, all of you are already familiar with the idea of norms, isn't it? In fact, Professor Madhu Beru told you a little bit about norms, and I think some other faculty also told you. Well, you've learnt about the squared norm, isn't it? You've learnt about L2 norm. So, in fact, there is a formal way of saying this. You can say that when you make a piecewise constant approximation. So, if you look at this, for example, if I take the error between the actual function, the blue function and the red function, or the blue function and the dot dash red function, then the L2 norm of the error between the actual function ft and the solid red approximation is more than the L2 norm of the error between ft and this dot dash approximation. And now if you make an approximation, if you make a piecewise constant approximation on intervals of length of 1/4, that L2 norm of the error will go down again, and the L2 norm of the error will be a monotonically non-increasing sequence or decreasing. I can't always say decreasing, but I can definitely say non-increasing sequence. As you keep increasing the resolution, I am confident that the L2 norm of the error will not go up, right? It may or may not go down, because it's quite possible that you might have reached the function at some stage. If the function itself is piecewise constant, you might have reached it. So after that, the L2 norm of the error will not go down, but it will remain at 0 or remain somewhere. That is possible. So in any case, it will be a non-increasing sequence. That can be said with certainty. Now, in fact, one has to prove that formally, but I mean, it's easy to see intuitively from here. The smaller you make the interval, the better you can make the error, that is, the lesser you can make the error. Now, actually, here this is one part of the story, but what we want to do now is to go the other way. So, I have here the piecewise constant approximation on a larger interval as a function of the piecewise constant approximations on the half intervals. Now, what we also want to see is what is the incremental information when we double the resolution like this. What is it that has come in? What is new? What is it that has come in new? So you see, there is a way of looking at it. I mean, you already had some coarse information, right? So when you had a piecewise constant approximation on a larger interval, it was a coarse representation, and you made a piecewise constant approximation on half the size of interval. That means that you did something better. How much better did you do? You want to capture that. How much better did you do? Well, the incremental information can be captured by f t by 2 1 minus f t by 2 2 divided by 2. That is what was the incremental. Let me try and give you a pictorial understanding of this. So, what I am saying is that here, when I went from this solid red line to the dot dash line, then it is this half of this which gave me the correction. This difference, ft by 2 1 minus ft by 2 2, this height, isn't it? This height divided by 2 is the incremental information that comes in. That's a way to understand. Okay. So, let us call that incremental, let us give that incremental information a name. We call that incremental information delta f over an interval of t. That means when you go from an interval of t to t by 2, in that particular interval of t, this is the incremental information that you have. Now, I want to put down these two equations together. So, I want to write down the previous equation which I showed you. That is, now this is, so this is called the approximation process, what we have done here. You already had a better representation on half the intervals, and you are going to a coarser representation. That is what this equation does. And this second equation tells you what is it that you have lost. The incremental information was lost, isn't it? Now I want to go the other way. So how will I go the other way? let me write these two equations together. I have f over an interval of t is f t by 2 1 plus f t by 2 2 divided by 2, and delta f t is f t by 2 1 minus f t by 2 2 divided by 2. Now, if you add these two and if you subtract these two, you get back the other way, to go the other way. So, let us do that. Let us add and subtract. If you add, what do you get? You get f t by 2 1 is equal to f t plus f delta f t, and f t by 2 2 is f t minus delta f t. Now again look at both these equations. Look at this equation here. This is, I will call this the synthesis equation. And I will call the previous equations the analysis equations. Look carefully at these two equations. Look at the analysis equation, look at the synthesis equation. Do you see some similarity in the nature of the equations? Yes, in fact, those equations are almost the same except there's a factor of half, which is a small change, but otherwise essentially you are adding and subtracting. That is the essential operation. Now, this is at the heart of a very simple multi-rate filter bank. In fact, you see what, so let's look at the situation now. Now, I have this function f of t. Take a large interval of the function, and I divide into several intervals of size t. Each of these intervals is of size t. All right. Now, I do this business on each of these intervals. So, what do? I divide each of these intervals into size t by 2. So, let me show that in red. Similarly, for all the other intervals. And so, now I have a situation, I have these blue numbers, I can call them, the blue numbers are piecewise constant approximations on the intervals of size t. And then I have the red numbers, which are piecewise constant approximations on intervals of size t by 2. Yes. Yes, each of these, so they are contiguous intervals, each of size t. So, I have divided the complete interval into intervals of each interval of size t. I am first looking at the function over intervals of size t, and I am just taking one step of improvement. First, I am looking at intervals of size t, and I am looking at intervals of size t by 2. Now, that t is arbitrary. So, now you can replace t by 2 and then go to t by 4, and then you can go to t by 6. Same principles can be used. So, the argument is not specific to a particular value of t. So, here I have this t by 2 and the next, and so I have a red function here, I have another red function here, so on. You can keep getting, so of course, don't pardon my drawing, but the idea is that you have these blue functions and the red functions. The red functions are piecewise constant approximations on half intervals, and the blue functions, the blue lines, are piecewise constant approximations on full intervals of size t. Now, this if you just concatenate these blue lines, they give you a certain approximation of the function. If you concatenate the red lines, they give you a better approximation of the function, right? Now, this initial coarse approximation and improved approximation does not require full functions to represent it. It only requires a sequence. So, for example, here for the blue functions, you can have a sequence which consists of this value followed by this value, followed by this value, and then this value, right? The better approximation, the red one, will have a sequence of these values. So, what is the situation? You have the red sequence being double the size of the blue sequence, which is obvious. The red sequence is going to have 10 values in it or 10 points in it for the same interval, and the blue sequence will have only 5 points. Now, if you went to intervals of size t by 4, then you would get 20 points and so on. So, obviously, in going from these 10 red points to the 5 blue points, there is some loss of information, and you know what that loss of information is. That also you capture it by writing delta f, right? So, now if you focus on one of these intervals, and let us do that once again. Come back to this situation where you focus just on one interval. There are two ways to write down the piecewise constant approximation on intervals of size t by 2. One way is that you write down the individual piecewise constant approximations on intervals of size t by 2, which are these dot dash lines here. The other way is you write it down in terms of this solid red line and this correction. That is also an equivalent correct way. So, there are two different pieces of information that you need to write down, but you can write them in two different ways. And drawing the connection between the original way of writing down two different averages to this philosophy of coarse and correction is called analysis, and that can be done by using what is called an analysis filter bank. So, you can construct a sequence of values. So, now let us go back to this drawing here. You can visualize. Now, you have this function, take any function, it could be an audio function, it could be an audio signal, it could be some part of an image signal, whatever. So, we are talking about one-dimensional signals right now. So, you have a one-dimensional signal. Let us assume it is for infinite time. You have divided that time axis into intervals of size t, and then you have also divided it into intervals of size t by 2. So, you have got a better approximation to that function by making piecewise constant approximations on intervals of size t by 2. That gives you a sequence. Now, that sequence can be decomposed into two parts. A coarse representation which actually makes a piecewise constant approximation on double the size of interval, and a correction. So, how will you express this process of going from the sequence of points at higher resolution? So, let me write it down. Sequence of points at higher resolution. Two, you want to do two things. Now, you want to go to a sequence of points at one resolution lower, that means half the resolution, and you also want to capture the correction or the incremental information. So, how will you do that? How do you go to a coarser representation? Now, y of n is x of n plus x of n plus 1 by 2. And y of n is x of n minus x of n plus 1 by 2. This gives you the incremental information. And this gives you the average or the coarser information, coarser representation. or what is called the approximation. What are y of n, x of n? X of n is the sequence of averages over intervals of size t by 2. And y of n, well, y of n is the output of a system, a discrete system, which you are using to process the sequence. What is a discrete, what is a system? A system is something that takes a sequence and gives out a sequence according to some rule. What is that rule here? The rule is this. The output point at, now, here we are talking about discrete sequences. So there is an input sequence and an output sequence. So how is the input sequence represented? As a function of the integer index n, right? So at every point n, the output is determined from the input sequence according to this relationship. Y at the point n is x at the point n plus x at the next point, n plus 1 divided by 2, isn't it? Let's go back to the picture and understand. So y at this point is determined by x. So x, think of x as the red ones. So this red one plus this red one divide by 2 gives you the blue one. That's what you're saying here. And this red one minus this red one divide by 2 gives you the correction that is lost, or the incremental information which is lost. That is what the second equation says here. X of n minus x of n plus 1 by 2. Is that clear, everybody? Yeah. So now you see, however, you don't stop here. Now you have done this, but will you keep doing it for every point? So will you do it here? Will you also do it here? You will not do it here. Why? Because you are not going to combine this point with this point. No. You are going to now jump 2 points. You are going to do it here. You are going to jump this and you are going to do it here. Then you are not going to do it here and you are going to do it here. Then you are not going to do it. So you are going to do it only for alternate points. How do you express this operation in discrete system theory of jumping points? You express it by an operation called downsampling. Is that right? So we express it. So we are not doing this operation at every point. We are jumping one point at a time after every point. And that is called downsampling. And how do we represent downsampling? Now we are going to use a representation. Now again, let us look at this operation. This operation called downsampling is represented as a down arrow followed by 2. Okay. What is the meaning of downsampling? If I have a sequence here, let's say A0, A1, A2, this is a sequence, A3, A4, A5 and so on. The output is going to be A0 followed by A2 followed by A4. In other words, you are skipping every alternate point. That's called downsampling. So you need to do downsampling because you are not doing this operation. And the same downsampling operation has also to be done on the lower branch, isn't it? So you need to do a downsampling operation here as well, isn't it? So what is the overall analysis system that we now have? The overall analysis, now this is called an analysis filter bank. You have the original sequence. You have these two filters. These are called discrete time filters. I'll explain to you why they're called discrete time filters in a minute. Is that right? So do you all understand this now? This is called the overall analysis filter bank. The upper branch gives you the approximations and the lower branch gives you what are called the details. Now, how can we synthesize, how can we reconstruct what we wanted from the original analysis components? Well, again we are going to add and subtract, right? So let's add and subtract. So you see, now let's mark the point. So let's mark this point. Let's call this A for approximation and D for detail. A for approximation, D for detail. Okay, and now we'll begin with the points A and B again, A and D. So what are we doing? We are doing A, D, and we are adding them and getting back x of n, and we are subtracting them how do you express the operation of subtraction? You multiply D by minus 1 and then add it to A, and that gives me x of n plus 1. Now you need to do something more. If I want to resynthesize the original, now you're getting one point of the sequence on the top branch, the next point on the bottom branch. So now how will you reconstruct the sequence? How will you reconstruct? By doing a process of interleaving. Now we need to interleave. So what does it mean? See, for example, let's take n equal to 0. Let's start from n equal to 0. So what will happen? You will get x0 here, x2 there, or sorry, x0. So you see, x0 will come here, x1 comes here, xn plus 1. Now you already jumped 2 steps. So x2 will come here, x3 comes here. All right, x4 comes here, x5 comes here. Is that right? So you get the points on alternate branches. So what should you do if I want to reconstruct x from this? I will have to shift the lower sequence by one step and then fuse it with the upper one. So how do I express this operation of shifting and fusing? First, I should put zeros in between. So first, I must do the following. I must carry out a process of upsampling. Put zeros in between. That means I have x0, 0, x2, 0, x4, 0 and so on. And then x1, 0, x3, 0 and so on. And then I shift this by one step. So how does it look? It looks like x1 comes here, 0, x3, 0, x5, 0 and so on. Now what do I do once I've shifted? I can simply add them. So the situation is like this. I'll go back to the previous drawing, isn't it? I will first need to upsample both of these, isn't it? So now that upsampling operation is expressed by an up arrow followed by 2. Up arrow followed by 2. Up arrow followed by 2. Now this one needs to be shifted by one step. And then this and this needs to be added. And that gives me back the original sequence x. Any doubts so far? Is that clear? Now, I am going to, for good reasons, look at this figure once again, what I have done here. You see, I have done an upsampling operation here after adding, and here also I have done an upsampling operation after adding. Now, for the purpose of actual operation, this is a good way to do it. That means, it would be foolish to try and do it in any other way. But from the point of view of bringing a connection between the previous figure, the analysis system, and the synthesis system, this is not the most convenient way to understand it. So, let us see if we can represent this in a slightly different way. So, you see, you are adding, look at this branch here. You are adding and then you are upsampling by 2. But the upsampling operation is commutative with adding. So, if I add A and B and then upsample by 2, that means if I have 2 sequences, I add them point by point and then upsample by 2. It's the same as first upsampling each of those sequences by 2 and then adding point by point. Of course, that's a wasteful thing to do because you're adding zeros also. But still, conceptually, it's the same thing, right? So, I could shift this upsampling operator to A and D and then do the addition. And the same thing is true for subtraction. I can first subtract as I have done here and then upsample, or I could first upsample and then subtract. There I would be subtracting 0 minus 0, which is again wasteful, but then conceptually there is nothing wrong, right. So, therefore, we can redraw this. Let us redraw it. You have A and D, and you upsample first. Now, there is one little problem. You see, you have shifted by one step here, isn't it? You have shifted by one step here. You have upsampled and then shifted and then added. Now, that is correct. It is correct to say that you can move the upsampling operations here. But then what about the shift? When you upsample first and then subtract, initially you are shifting by one step, but now what should you do? You should be shifting by 2 steps. That is important. That has to be taken care of here. All right. Yes.
Are these operations commutative?
No. So, that is the question. The question is, are these operations commutative? So, the operations of addition and upsampling are commutative or subtract. So, linear combination and upsampling are commutative, but shifting and upsampling are not commutative. So, when I first upsampled and then shifted, actually I am shifting. See, there the shift is on effectively one sample point, and now you should have shifted on 2 sample points. That is the situation. There is a difference. So, of course, they are not the same, right. So, you see the problem. So, that needs to be taken care of. But after you do that, then essentially again you have an add and subtract. So, now you see, now let us trace. So, what is the situation? Of course you are shifting, and then anyway you are adding everything, isn't it? So, what is the contribution? Let us see now. Let us try to separate the contribution of A and D in this process, right? So, what is where does A contribute to the whole sum here? A contributes the whole sum, coming partly from here and partly from here. How does it contribute when coming from here? It contributes, it gets upsampled, then it gets shifted by one step, isn't it? How does D contribute to the whole sum here? It contributes, it comes from here and it also comes from the bottom, but in the bottom it gets multiplied by -1 and then shifted by one step, isn't it? So we can express that by separating. So we separate the contributions of A and B. Which sum are we talking about? This sum here. After addition, right? That's sum we are talking about. So what is the contribution of A? It comes as it is, and it also comes with a shift of 1. Okay, and how does D contribute? It comes as it is on the upper branch and comes with a negative sign with a shift of 1, and together these make the sum. All right. So this is interesting. Now look at this, which is essentially called the synthesis system, synthesis process. You have resynthesized what you were initially starting from after analyzing. So in fact, this is the simplest example of what is called a multirate filter bank. In fact, let me now put down that multirate filter bank. And let me use the notation of which we use for filters normally. So, for the moment you may not appreciate why, but let us accept that shift by one step we shall denote by Z inverse. Okay, and therefore let me write down the analysis and synthesis filter banks together on the same page. I have an input, I have 1 plus Z inverse divided by 2, 1 minus Z inverse divided by 2, downsampled by 2. This is the analysis part. What is the synthesis part? First upsample by 2 and then do something very similar to the analysis. 1 plus Z inverse, 1 minus Z inverse, and add these. And this gives you get back the input here, isn't it? This is the input and you get back the input. Okay. This is the simplest example of a multirate filter bank. Now let's understand each of these terms. First, what do we mean by multirate processing? You see, you have discrete processing going on anywhere in this system. You're dealing with a sequence at the input and the output and everywhere in between. You're dealing with a sequence. Now, in conventional or in single rate digital signal processing systems, the sequence has the same sampling rate all over the system. However, in this system, what is happening? The sampling rate or the rate at which processing takes place is halved in between. After analysis, it is halved, and after synthesis, it is doubled. Right? So there are different rates of processing in the same system. So it's called a multirate discrete system. All right. Now, what else can we say about it? What are the typical components for multirate discrete system? There are filters like this, there are downsamplers, there are upsamplers, and of course there are summing or branching points. There is a summing point here and a branching point here. Is that correct? Now, of course, here we had two rates in the system. But suppose you wanted to go from an interval of t to an interval of t by 2 and then you wanted to go to an interval of t by 4. Then what would you do? You would start from this input, you would make this analysis here. Now you have the analyzed sequence that can again be subjected to the same analysis. And therefore, you can now go down to half of that rate and therefore you can have more than 2 rates in the system, right. So this is, you see, now there are other interesting, in fact this simple multi-rate system has several interesting properties if you look at it carefully. One is, if you look at the overall system is transparent in the sense that even if the system were not there, if you were simply to connect the input to the output and put a black box around it, and if you were to put the system into that black box, you could not make a distinction between the two. That's why it's called a perfect reconstruction system. This is a very simple example of a perfect reconstruction multi-rate system. Moreover, you notice that the nature of the analysis and the synthesis filters is very similar. You have a 1 plus Z inverse by 2 here and a 1 plus Z inverse. That's the by 2 is a very minor difference. You can in fact pull out that divide by 2 and put it in the end if you like. So essentially the analysis and the synthesis filters are very similar. In fact, they are really the same filters. And that's why this filter bank is also called an orthogonal filter bank. Now, what is a filter bank? A filter bank is a collection of filters, all of which either have the same input or which all add together at the output. So, when do they have the same input? In analysis. So, as you notice here, in the analysis side, they all have the same input. And on the synthesis side, they all come together to combine by addition at the output. So, what is a filter bank? Either an analysis system where all the filters have a common input, or a synthesis system where all the filters have a common point of addition at the output. Is that right? Now, there are some other interesting properties of this filter bank, and we will discover them by now working out an example. So, I want you to work this example, right? I said we'd have a lecture, but we must have a little bit of work being done by all of you. Let us give the input x of n is equal to cos or a times a naught cos omega naught n to these two filters. So y of n is equal to x of n plus x of n minus 1 or n plus 1, doesn't matter, by 2, and y of n is x of n minus x of n plus 1 by 2. Now, we will do a think group share exercise. So, let us quickly, all of you, you don't have to form separate groups, you are there already two at a, you can combine with a third person if somebody is alone. I want you to come out with the output for each of these systems, and I want you to first come out with the output. Each of you must come out with the output individually and then discuss with your partner. Then in the group phase, I am going to ask you to answer certain questions about that output. So, first write down the output and write down by trigonometric identities. So, what I am saying is, here you have this written as a naught cos omega naught n. You are going to obtain a sum of terms, but use basic trigonometric identities to convert it into a product of terms. So, please do that. You can form groups of 2 or 3, size 2 or 3. So, write it down as a product of terms, product of sinusoids. Then after you do this, you can, in your grouping phase, you can discuss and check your answer in the group. After you check your answer in the grouping phase, I am going to ask you to answer further questions on the answer. Okay, so now in your grouping phase, you must be checking your answer, but I want you to answer the following further questions. Listen to the question. Now see, you will get the answer in a form like this. You will get y of n is of the form something times cos omega naught times something, okay, n something, whatever. Now, what I want you to look at is this something here. Let us look at this function a naught cos omega naught n. What happens if I change omega naught by 2 pi? So, if I take omega naught plus 2 pi n, what will I get? A naught cos omega naught n plus 2 pi n. How much is this? What is cos 2 pi n plus omega naught n? Equal to a naught cos, that's right. Is that right? Adding 2 pi, any multiple of 2 pi to the argument makes no difference. So, what does it mean? These omega naught are unique only to the extent of 2 pi. They are unique only in a contiguous interval of 2 pi. Now, in fact, cos omega naught n and cos of minus omega naught n is the same thing again, isn't it? So, we are not going to gain anything by looking at omega naught and minus omega naught. So, now what range of omega should I look at? Only for omega going from 0. So, you need a contiguous interval of 2 pi. So, I should have looked at minus pi to pi. But I don't even need to look at minus pi to pi, because what happens at the negative omega is the same as what happens at positive omega. And therefore, I need to look only from 0 to pi. So, you can look at the interval omega naught going from 0 to pi and sketch this quantity. How does this quantity change as a function of omega naught for omega naught going from 0 to pi? Now, do it for both those systems, both of these systems, this system and this system. And this is your exercise in the grouping phase. And then we are going to share your answers. Whenever some group is ready, you can put up your hands. Done? Very good. Come.
Here given signal x of n is the input to the filter bank, which is a0 cos omega 0 n. This is the signal which is given to us, and this signal is combined. In one case it is x of n plus its advanced version by 1. So, this y1 will be a0 cos omega 0 n, this is x of n, and x of n plus 1 is a0 cos of n is replaced by n plus 1. So, it will be omega 0 n plus n. N is omega 0 divided by 2. A0, so cos A plus B, cos A plus cos B, so cos of A plus omega 0 n plus omega 0 divided by 2 into cos of A minus B. This is A and this is B. So omega 0 n got cancelled. So cos of omega 0 by 2. And here 2 comes, that 2 to get cancelled. This is
cos minus omega 0. But
yeah, sorry. This get cancelled. No, sorry, this is okay. 2 omega 0. Okay. ठीक है, sir. And this is minus. Cos is okay, even function, so no problem. Cos of 2 omega 0 n plus omega 0 divided by 2.
Correct, yeah.
Into cos of omega 0 by 2. So this will become a0 cos of omega 0 n plus omega 0 2. This is shift in the phase, and this is change in the amplitude. A0 into cos of omega 0 by 2. Amplitude is changed by factor of cos of omega 0 2.
Very good.
And phase is changed
is now changed by a factor of cos omega naught by 2.
And phase is changed by omega 0 by 2. So similarly,
in fact, you should pay attention to both the change of amplitude and the change of phase. Yes, done. In fact, the change of phase is also very interesting.
Yeah.
Move the paper upwards. No.
So second case is y2n, which is output of the second channel, which is subtraction of a cos omega 0 n, this is our x of n, minus x of n plus 1 cos of omega 0 n plus omega 0 divided by 2. This is our x of n, and this one is x of n plus 1.
Correct.
So here it is in terms of sign. Both the terms, they are coming in terms of sign. So this is a0. So I will write a0 sine a plus b. So a plus b is omega 0 n plus omega 0 a plus b divided by 2 into a minus b sine a minus b. So it is omega 0 by 2. I think that minus sign is got cancelled because of this. So 2 to get cancelled. Minus sign is ठीक है. So yeah. So this is again here amplitude is changed by sine omega 0 by 2, and phase is changed by omega 0 by 2 plus pi. So plus pi by 2. Omega 0 by 2 plus pi by 2 because it is sine. So this is y0, y2, y1 and y2. So next step is you have to reconstruct.
Yeah. Now you want to sketch. Now sketch these two changes of amplitude on the same scale. Sketch them between 0 and pi.
0 and pi.
So I think we should give Professor Nalbalwar a big hand. Very correct. Now, but we'll have a prize also in the variability function. We'll have a prize for those who answer this correctly. Professor Nalbalwar gets the prize. Now, who will get? We'll get one more prize for somebody who sketches these two correctly. These two. So, who would like to come and sketch these two on the same between 0 and pi? Yes, come.
So for first function, it is just if you see, it is in terms of cos, so it will be like this only. So it's like this function, and
Mark the value.
this is 0 and this is pi.
Yes.
Okay, and then this portion is in the terms of sine, so it is like this only.
Very good.
Okay. And yes, sir.
No.
Shift.
That is phase shift. But he is drawing
Shift.
the amplitude. He is showing the
Only
change
amplitude,
of,
sir.
he
Only.
is showing the change of amplitude.
Okay.
Now that's very interesting. No, but for different omega, as a function of omega.
Function
As a
of
function of omega by 2. As a function of omega. As a function, you mark omega 0 on the axis.
Yeah.
isn't it? So
Okay.
very good. Yeah, I think we can give a no, but Ashok will tell us what kind. So which filter relatively emphasizes higher frequencies and which filter relatively emphasizes lower frequencies.
The first one is emphasizes lower frequencies. Second one is emphasizing higher frequencies.
Very good. So now we'll give Ashok a big hand. Good. So you see, you have the one filter which essentially emphasizes lower frequencies. So it's a low pass. It's trying to be a low pass filter. And the second filter tries to emphasize higher frequencies. So it's trying to be a high pass filter, isn't it? So in fact, this forms a complementary pair. This forms a complement. It's a very simple example of a complementary pair, a low pass filter and a high pass filter. Now I said it's trying to be a low pass filter, and because it's not a very good low pass filter or a very good high pass filter. And what is when you design two band perfect reconstruction filter banks, what are you aiming at? You are aiming at making the filters more and more, low and high pass. So we'll try and approximate more and more closely the low pass half band filter on the upper branch and the high pass upper band, the half band filter on the lower branch. Okay. So with this was a very quick flavor of a two band filter bank. Is that right? And as you can see, if you really understand the math behind it, it's very simple, isn't it? And here is a beautiful application of how you can use simple, very simple, essentially high school trigonometry to understand a very simple example of a two-band filter bank. So with this, then we'll conclude this session now, and now we'll begin the valedictory function. So we'll now,